The demon set Lu down and remarked on how intriguing it was. The demon was fascinated by humanity's many emotions and had heard that humans often scream when they feel hopeless. It then demanded Lu beg to satisfy its curiosity. Noticing that Lu's mouth was bound, the demon realized why she wasn't screaming and freed her mouth, insisting she beg. However, Lu refused, saying the one-fin demon was unworthy of her pleas. The demon questioned whether it wasn't worthy, to which Lu responded that she came from a martial family and would not kneel to an enemy, as showing weakness was a disgrace. She demanded either death or combat. Infuriated by her defiance, the demon struck her, declaring she would die. At that moment, Ang arrived, demanding the demon release Lu. Lu, surprised to see Ang alone, questioned why he had come by himself. The demon was pleased to see the bait had worked and that Ang, the main target, had arrived. Lu wondered why Ang was the target. Ang asked Lu if she was all right. She confirmed she was and asked why he had come alone, as he would not be able to keep up with the one-fin demon. She urged him to run away. The demon struck Lu, ordering her to be silent. Ang pleaded with the demon not to hurt Lu, offering to take her place if it would let her go. The demon, however, charged at Ang, declaring that they would all die. Ang attempted to counterattack, but the demon dodged his strike and hit him instead. Ang realized that his body was struggling to react quickly enough to the demon's attacks. The demon remarked that Ang smelled like them and expressed curiosity about why. Ang wondered if the demon was of the water type and noted that demons had evolved significantly over the past 50 years, gaining numerous attributes. His own frail body could only mimic past movements, rendering him unable to use his abilities effectively, which meant he wouldn't last long in this fight. Lu was worried, realizing that Ang would die if things continued this way, and she cursed him for coming alone. Determined not to remain passive, she resolved to take action. Meanwhile, Ang was battling the demon and seized an opportunity to strike. The demon taunted Ang, noting that he had already killed a one-fin demon in the cave, questioning why he appeared so weak now. Ang replied that he didn't understand the demon's comments and asked when he had ever liked a one-fin demon, finding the accusation nonsensical. The demon told Ang that he didn't like his tone and would punish him accordingly. He performed a strange and painful act on Ang, warning that if he lied, he would die. Then he attacked Ang, causing him to fall back and become entangled with several trees. Ang, in agony, wondered if the demon had ruptured all his organs. Liu, seeing Ang's suffering, felt a sense of urgency to help. The demon approached Ang and warned that if he didn't reveal the information, he would be eaten, which would somehow contribute to the demon's evolution. As the demon moved to capture Ang, Liu intervened with a fierce attack, knocking the demon away and telling him to keep his hands off her teammate. Ang thought Liu had forcefully extricated herself from the situation, her wrists and ankles burning. Liu confronted the demon, declaring that if he wanted to kill someone, he should kill her first. The demon agreed and instructed her not to dodge his attacks. He then assaulted Ang from all directions, while Liu remained in place, blocking each attack. Ang urged her to dodge, but Liu explained that if she moved, the attacks would hit him instead. She asked him to let her focus. Despite her efforts, some spikes emerged from the ground and struck her feet. The demon captured her and declared that instead of killing her, he would torture her to make her scream. Ang lay there watching in despair and thought about how ironic it was that despite his reincarnation, he still had to witness his teammates die before him. He felt a deep frustration at having to be saved by a girl and questioned how he could protect others when he couldn't even protect himself. He wondered why he had to endure the death of his teammates once more and why he felt so weak. Suddenly, Ang unleashed a tremendous amount of aura, freeing Liu from the demon's grasp. The demon, puzzled by Ang's action, questioned whether it was merely the wind pressure that had caused the release, noting that Ang hadn't actually attacked him. Ang told Liu that she had done well for her first time as squad leader and instructed her to leave the rest to him. He gently laid her down. The demon, sensing a familiar smell, speculated that there were secrets about Ang. Ang, confused by the demon's comments, felt a surge of power emanating from his chest, rising upwards with an intense pressure as if it was about to burst forth. In a fit of rage, Ang's core began to shine brightly. The demon, noticing the transformation, wondered if it was a kingfin core. Liu saw the rays emanating from Ang and heard him declare that he knew the one-fin demon was going to die. Ang had awakened to his one-fin form. Meanwhile, Yaut and Yoshi were engaged in combat with another demon. The demon, feeling disoriented, sensed a powerful aura similar to its own. Yacht landed a punch, followed by Yoshi's kick, which left a noticeable hole in the demon. The demon, enraged by the damage, began to glow with intense energy. Yoshi noted that it was self-destructing and asked Yacht what he planned to do while she prepared to protect him. The demon proclaimed that all humans would perish. At that moment, a blast of immense speed, delivered by a spear, propelled the demon away to a considerable distance. Yoshi identified the attack as coming from the defense cannon. Joel, along with the others, was battling the no-fin demons and noted the sheer number of them, realizing there seemed to be no end. He reported that might be able to change things in the future. He then used his healing power on Lu. The one-fin demon was astonished and inquired if Aang was of the wood type. Aang responded that he vaguely remembered certain things, possibly because he had absorbed a one-fin wood-type demon. He suspected that he could gain the water-type powers by absorbing a one-fin water-type demon. The one-fin demon was taken aback by the level of power Aang exhibited, which he had never seen before. Aang summoned Roots to appear behind him and declared that he was seeking to harness the power of the demon. The demon was terrified to learn that Aang had absorbed a wood-type demon. Aang found it intriguing, noting that he had never seen demons show fear in his previous life. He approached the demon closely and challenged it to attack him with everything it had, wanting to gauge the demon's current strength. The demon questioned whether Aang was a demon or a human before launching an attack. Aang wondered if this was elemental control and recalled that the wood-type demon he had absorbed could perform similar feats. Tentacles emerged to grasp the demon, and Aang remarked that it didn't seem particularly challenging. He made the demon experience pain, prompting it to resort to its trump card. The demon unleashed water whips against Aang, but he managed to dodge them. The demon then charged at Aang with renewed ferocity, declaring that he would not kill the demon. Unlike the water type, the wolf type had its own unique characteristics. The demon struck Aang, laughing and boasting that Aang would never understand the true strength of a demon. As he spoke, he delivered a powerful kick to Aang. Aang fell, crashing into the trees, and admitted that the demon was right. He didn't fully understand the strength of a demon. He reflected that if the demon had known how quickly he could learn, it would have realized that Aang was the mightiest warrior. To defeat the demon, Aang needed to continually learn and adapt to its strength. The demon speculated whether this was a result of wood-type recovery, and Aang understood instantly. Determined, Aang charged at the demon. The demon was ensnared by the roots, and Aang seized its face, stating that he had grown bored of their fight. The demon felt something strange within its body before its form was blasted apart. Despite the destruction, its face and water crystal remained intact, and the demon claimed it could disperse its body. Manhwa encountered that while the demon's body might be dispersible, the core, the most crucial part, could not be. He noted the demon's overconfidence and then proceeded to extract the demon's core. He explained that even if the demon were a 7-fin type, it would still die if its core was destroyed. Aang took the water core and crushed it, drinking its essence to absorb its power. Aang noted that it didn't taste bad. The demon inside him urged him to consume more demons and kill the humans. As he slashed at Lu's shield, Aang struggled to suppress the demon within him. He wondered how he could ever kill his own teammate, realizing that he could never do that, was determined to save her. He pleaded with the demon inside him to leave him alone. The scene shifts to the main gate of the town, where the warriors were fighting against the no-fin demons. Lance observed that the demons were slowly climbing up, and while punching them, asked Misa where Lu and Aang were, noting that only those two were missing. As Misa continued to dispatch demons, she mentioned having heard some warriors talk about two who had sneaked out and were targeted by a one-fin demon. She speculated that these could be Aang and Lu. Lance was shocked to hear that the two had sneaked out. Misa asked him to stop pressing her for information, explaining that the two were indeed targeted by the one-fin demons, and she had no idea what had happened to them. She also wondered why the one-fin demons had appeared so suddenly. Lance instructed her to focus on the demon horde for the time being and continue fighting. Finally, Yoshi and Yacht joined the battle. Joel asked about their cores. Yacht replied that the depletion rate was under control and that Yoshi's core should be in a similar condition. Yoshi asked Joel if he had any plans. Joel explained that since Yoshi and Yacht had killed a one-fin demon, the attacks of the normal demons had weakened. However, the other one-fin demon was not present, and the remaining demons were behaving like a leaderless mob without any clear motive. Despite the fact that no-fin demons lack complex thoughts, Joel suggested that they exploit the demon's fear of death. By instilling fear and wearing down their will to fight, they could buy time for the warriors on the wall to regroup. He instructed Yoshi and Yacht to take care of their own cores and to make their next move as impactful as possible. Both agreed, and they ascended to a high position. As they descended, they unleashed a massive explosion. Yoshi noted that including the previous fight with the one-fin demon, this would be the second time they had used their cores in such a powerful way. Yacht remarked that if only the fire core within him could keep up, he could maintain this state indefinitely. Joel remarked that the explosive power of the red string core was quite terrifying, and then he plunged into the demons, slashing through them. From above, Misa observed that it was her first time seeing a captain's attacks executed with such intensity. Yacht realized that this level of power must come from the one-fin core and aspired to reach such a level of warrior caliber himself. After a while, Joel checked on Yacht and Yoshi to see if they were all right. Yacht confirmed that he could handle the burden and that his body was holding up. Yoshi mentioned the thrill of the battle. Joel surveyed the scene and noted that their tactics seemed to be working. He then encouraged the warriors to steel themselves and continue fighting. The demonic horde was being pushed back, and the hunters were pleased to hear this. Joel suddenly felt something was amiss and pointed out that something was approaching. As it drew closer, it became clear that it was Ong carrying Lu. Yoshi wondered where the one-fin demon was. Joel told Ong that, even though they had broken the resolve of the no-fin demons, Ong shouldn't act so brazenly among them. If the demons reacted, they would do so instantly. As if on cue, the demons roared and began attacking Aang. The three captains rushed in to save him. Aang only saw them as he exerted pressure to make them all fall. The demons then started to flee. The warriors were elated as the horde retreated. Some wondered why the demons had suddenly withdrawn and whether they were afraid of the captains. Others agreed, noting that the demons were likely terrified after witnessing the captains' incredible display of force. The warriors praised their captains for their bravery and strength. Yacht wondered if the retreat was due to their actions or if Ong had played a part. As Ong returned to normal, he noticed that the captains were coming to assist them. In his dreams, Ong spoke with the eight-fin demon, who told him that Ong must surely enjoy his powers. When Ong asked who he was, the demon replied that Ong had seen him before, though it had been over half a century ago, and he should remember. Aang realized that the demon before him was one of the eight-fin demons, and he asked how many there were. The demon replied not to worry. All doubts would be cleared in time. The demon then appeared before Aang, who was lying down, and introduced himself as the Crimson King Fin, the strongest of his kind. He noted that Aang did not panic upon seeing him, which was expected from the mightiest warrior, and that Aang's willpower to resist his manipulation was impressive. The Crimson King assured Aang that he would not be harmed. Aang asked why the demon had chosen his body and what had happened to his own. At that moment, another eight-fin demon emerged from behind Aang. Touching his face, the demon said that Aang would understand in time. He explained that Aang's body was now infused with the power of Crimson, and for both their sakes, Aang needed to work hard and evolve. The Crimson King added that after this, they would become ever closer to the perfect version of himself. Aang, growing angry, questioned what the demons took humans for, and then got to his feet and punched the demon. In reality, Aang rushed to attack and grabbed Lu's shirt, preparing to punch her. He then regained his senses and wondered what he was doing. Lu slapped him, and others questioned why Aang had acted this way. Jun then arrived and asked if this was how they should treat their savior. The others greeted him as master, while Lu referred to him as father. Joel informed Aang that Sun was the head of the Sato martial family and asked why Aang did not recognize him, given that he was from Halos. Aang realized that Sun was the father of his teammate and surmised that he had been cared for even while unconscious. He apologized to Sun for the trouble he had caused. Sun reassured Aang not to worry and expressed gratitude on behalf of the Sato family, acknowledging that Aang had saved Sun's daughter. He thanked Aang for his bravery. Jun then instructed all the captains to rest in the training area for the time being and announced that they would celebrate the defeat of the demonic horde later that night. The three captains apologized for any inconvenience caused. Jun mentioned that he had been watching the three of them since they were children, so they didn't need to be overly polite and should treat the place as their home. He acknowledged that he would be troubled by looking after Lu, as she was naturally stubborn. He instructed them to put her in her place if necessary and not to show her any mercy. Yacht suggested leaving the rest to them, assuring that they would handle their duties. He then asked everyone else to leave, except for Aang and the three captains. Once they were alone, Yacht asked Aang what he knew about the one-fin demon that had appeared during the exam in the demonic horde. Joel added that despite Ang being a member of Yacht's team, there was no room for hesitation. He then bluntly asked Ang if he was a demon. Ang asked if they were serious, reminding them that he and Lu had barely escaped from the one-fin demon. Joel pointed out that Yoshi and Yacht had defeated a one-fin demon together and questioned whether Ang was claiming to have defeated one on his own. He then demanded to know how Ang had managed to escape. Ang wondered if there was really no other way to explain his actions and what excuse he could offer. Joel pressed him, suggesting that Ang might be working with the demons, which could explain why the demons allowed him to escape each time. Ang contemplated whether he really had to reveal his secret and what the consequences might be. He feared that if he confessed, they might kill him immediately, and he worried that they wouldn't believe he was human. Instead, they would see him as a threat due to the powerful demon within him. Joel's stern expression made it clear that he wanted answers. Ang wondered if he truly had to fight against them, and if this situation was really happening. Yoshi intervened, telling Joel that it was enough. He explained that only a four-fin demon could transform into a human, and it didn't seem likely that Ang was such a demon. Even if he were, there would be no reason for him to come to a sea-level town like theirs. Yacht explained that demons were inherently selfish and lacked the concept of teamwork, so they wouldn't help others. Since Ang had saved Liu, Yacht concluded that he couldn't be a demon. Joel then patted Ang on the back, revealing that he had been teasing and questioning why everyone was so serious. He acknowledged that Ang and Liu had narrowly escaped death and must be exhausted. Yacht added that Liu had mentioned passing out after battling the one-fin demon and did not remember what happened afterward. He asked Ang how he managed to escape with Liu. Yoshi inquired if Ang had defeated the one-fin demon. Ang reflected on how he had indeed defeated it and realized that his worry about the demon within him had nearly made him forget. He claimed that he was a genius and acknowledged that his ability was a bit much. He explained that he could instantly optimize and enlarge the core's strength, which allowed him to briefly surpass his current power. This was his secret trump card. Yoshi noted that Ang's description of his abilities sounded similar to how they used their core's power explosively. Ang agreed and wondered if they would believe him if he explained further. Joel remarked that if what Ang said was true, then Ang was indeed a genius. Yacht asked if Ang was suggesting that he used this skill to defeat the demon in the cave as well. Ang confirmed that he had invented this technique the first time he faced a one-fin demon. He explained that his body had absorbed all the power from the core instantly, allowing him to defeat the demon with a single attack. He had blasted the demon to pieces when its guard was down. But because it was his first time using the technique, he passed out afterward. He had used the same technique again to save Liu, but his body could not handle the output, causing him to pass out once more. Yacht considered that if Ang's account was true, it would explain why the core in his chest was damaged both times. The amount of power had exceeded the limits. He marveled at Ang's genius. Yoshi agreed that if Ang's explanation was accurate, it validated Ang's claim that it was too much for him to handle. Yoshi noted that their technique was similar, but they had trained to limit the burden on their bodies when using their core explosively. Since Ang could not control it as they did, he advised that Ang should refrain from using the technique again until he learned to control it properly. Yacht agreed with Yoshi and said that if Ang was truly a genius, there was no reason to turn down a sparring match. They moved to an open area with Ang preparing to face Yacht. He thought that Yacht still didn't fully trust him. Yacht, appearing enraged, challenged Ang to attack. Ang braced himself, wondering how he would fight Yacht. Even though his current power was considered basic compared to his past abilities, his body couldn't handle a full-on fight. He contemplated whether he should try using the demon's strength. Yacht rushed in with incredible speed, but Ang managed to dodge, witnessing massive destruction as a result. Yoshi called out to Yacht, urging him to control himself. Yacht replied that, if nothing else, Ang's reactions were commendable. Ang realized he was relying entirely on his past life experience, but this was already his limit. As Yacht attacked again, Ang dodged and noticed that Yacht was causing extensive damage to the arena, treating it as if it were his own home. Yacht moved swiftly to grab Ang by the neck, asking if that was all he had to offer. Ang realized that his body couldn't escape Yacht's grip. Yacht then slammed Ang against the side wall. Joel observed that Yacht was going overboard and suggested they stop him. Yoshi reassured him that Yacht wasn't the type to harm someone unnecessarily. Yacht taunted Ang, questioning whether he truly deserved the title of genius. Ang, unwilling to be looked down upon, recalled that he was called a king by the warriors. He thought that if Yacht knew who he really was, he might view Ang differently. Since Ang had claimed to be a genius, he felt compelled to demonstrate something worthy of the title. Acknowledging his reincarnation, Ang decided to stop adhering to his old limitations. He resolved to use the demon's power within him, considering that Yat, being a 209-month-old child himself, wouldn't mind a little trickery. Ang unleashed his aura, surprising Yoshi. He challenged Yat, saying it was his turn to attack. Yat sensed something unusual in the air. Ang believed that by harnessing the demon's power, he could even enhance the synchronization rate of the low-quality core in his chest. It seemed he could unlock the body's full potential merely by altering his consciousness. Joel wondered if he could also sense this increase in synchronization. Yoshi questioned whether it was truly possible for an obscure sea-level town like Yahello's to produce someone as talented as Ang. Yat noticed that Ang's synchronization rate had risen to 40% and was still climbing. Liu's rate was at 39%, and Ang had surpassed her. Ang instructed Yat to stay focused before rushing in to punch him. Yat realized that Ang was now twice as fast and that his own performance had improved. Ang mentioned that it was merely a feint. Yat suspected that Ang was using the brief lapse in his reaction and a low body attack to throw him off balance, and that Ang was not attacking recklessly. Then, Ang delivered a kick to Yat as well. Joel thought it was a barrage of attacks and wondered where Ang had acquired such a high level of battle experience. Shun arrived, noting that it wasn't a good idea to be in close range with a brawler like Yat. Yoshi and Joel approached Shun, who asked when he had arrived. Shun explained that he had come while they were focused on the battle. Joel apologized, explaining that Yat wanted to use the training ground for a small spar with Ang, and apologized again for the minor disturbance. Shun glanced at the broken floor and inquired if that was the minor disturbance Joel mentioned. Joel assured him that Yat would cover the damage. Shun said it was fine and expressed curiosity about Ang, who shared the same name as the mightiest warrior. He wondered how Ang would handle Yat's counterattacks. Yat had caught Ang's leg. Shun remarked that Yat had always been like that. As soon as he saw an opportunity to counter, even if just for a moment, he would seize it with precision. His many years of fighting demons had only sharpened his judgment. Shun observed that having his ankles and movements seized in this manner would be difficult for Ang to escape, and it seemed Yat was about to learn a painful lesson. Ang told Yat that it was actually he who had caught Yat. Ang struck Yat's head with his own, landing a solid hit. Yat wondered what had just happened. Ang explained that while the human skull was fairly durable, the area between the eyes was softer. He then charged in to attack again. Despite the incoming blow, Yat remained steadfast. Joel watched in shock. Ang unleashed a massive blast, breaking the ground and demonstrating an all-in-one offensive and defensive technique. He decided to test the demon's power further. With immense force, Ang attacked again, causing Yat to retreat in fear. Yat vanished and reappeared behind him. Yoshi was stunned as Ang used the dust to maneuver into Yat's blind spot and turned Yat's own move against him. Joel remarked that Ang was quite vengeful, while Shun noted that he was a remarkably fast learner. Yat managed to grab Ang, reminding him not to forget that this was his move, and that he knew it better than anyone. Shun commented that Yat was now losing his edge. Ang threw a punch but intentionally missed, creating immense pressure. Yat wondered why Ang had missed. Ang explained that he preferred grappling techniques, and had they used them from the start without holding back, he would have had no chance. Yat took a hit to the head, which blurred his vision and caused him to misjudge the situation momentarily. Seizing the opportunity, Ang managed to gain the upper hand. Now everyone believed in his skill. Shun continued to wonder about Ang's true abilities. At that moment, the gate opened, and Misa, carrying a lance along with Lu, entered. Misa asked what was happening, noting that dinner was almost ready, and Lu's family had prepared some exquisite dishes in a large room. She was shocked by the destruction around them. Ang explained that most of the damage was the captain's fault. Lu inquired if this had been a sparring match. Joel told Yat that he had lost. Ang mentioned that he often forgot against demons, and the sudden change in the opponent's size and style had caught him off guard. Shun advised them to set aside formalities. The sparring match was over, and it was time to start the feast. Ang expressed his hunger and thanked Shun for the invitation. Shun reflected on Ang's determination, power, restraint, and incredible battle experience, noting that Ang had shown remarkable potential and had not gone overboard, allowing Yat to save face. Shun then asked Lu if she was interested in Ang, which shocked her. Thanks for watching with me today. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new chapter. Drop a comment below. What's your favorite manhwa right now? Until next time, stay cool and keep turning those pages. See you in the next video.